And that brings us to our final headliner topic for this episode of the Rock News Roundup podcast. And it is this: how long should a concert be? You're going to see your favorite band. You're going to a rock concert. How long should it be? How long do you think it should be for you to feel satisfied as a music fan? Would it be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 30 minutes? Like, what is the ideal length of a concert? It's kind of like this debate as old as time, but it's been rearing its head lately because it's coming up again because of one Mr. Jack White, who is currently on tour around the world promoting his latest record called No Name. And I guess some Jack White fans online, fans everywhere, have been voicing displeasure. What? People voicing displeasure online? Has not been heard of, but they're voicing displeasure about the length of Jack White's set list, saying that he hasn't been playing long enough on this current tour, at least for their tastes or for the money that they're paying, which sparked Jack White to go on Instagram and say this. I'll pull this up for you so you can see it here. I'm going to try to paraphrase this as much as possible. But Jack White went on Instagram and he had this to say. So he's been hearing a lot of chatter throughout the year of this glorious electric touring about how long our sets are, quote unquote, supposed to be, as if the length of a show determines how good it is. I know we were living in a current era where people like to say so-and-so played for 3 hours last night and brag about it the next day. But he wants his fans to say, or to know in his mind, that he has no intention of impressing people in that context. He mentions that the Beatles and Ramones played 30-minute-ish sets back in their heyday, which is absolutely correct, but things were different back then. And then he's saying that in this point in his life that he would prefer to play shows of that kind of length and maybe not go as long as other bands do. And then he goes on to say here that, you know, he doesn't want to have the big lasers. He doesn't want his sets or his shows to be like a Marvel movie or something like that. He doesn't need 3 hours to do what he needs to do to make a connection. There's no set list. It's not a Marvel movie. It's not a Vegas residency. It's nothing like that. It's rock and roll. It's a breathing organism, artistic stuff, blah, 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 all that thing. So basically he's coming back at his fans who have been complaining about the length of the show. So I wanted to kind of chime in on this, both as a musician, as a music fan, as somebody who's been to a lot of concerts over the years. I kind of wanted to jump in here and kind of say my quick thoughts on this, you know, and it's not an easy issue to face, right? Because there's always that interplay between band and artist. We all go to concerts. We all want to make a connection with our favorite artists. I think that's what we're trying to go for at every show, right? So I see all the points on this issue. From an artist perspective, you know, really an artist wants to play however long they need to make the show good, which is what Jack White is saying in his Instagram post. He's like, this is the type of show I feel I can do to make it the most effective and the most enjoyable for the audience. And he's totally right about that. Not every show has to be long for it to be good. You know, not everyone is Bruce Springsteen, nor should they be. The thing about Bruce Springsteen is that he's an anomaly when it comes to concerts, when he's up there for 3 or 4 hours playing for that long. And that's good for him, but maybe that's not good for Jack White. So I think from an artist's perspective, like, you have to play what makes sense for the show, which is exactly what the point he is making. And it's like, and really when you think about it, as long as you're hearing the songs that you want to hear, I don't really understand the harm of that. If the set list has enough of the songs that you're going to hear, whether they're the hits, if you're more of a casual fan, you want to hear the hits. If you're more of a diehard fan, you want to hear some deep cuts, maybe among those hits. Totally, I get that whole thing. And I think that there needs to be a balance that needs to be struck. And I think that that's what Jack White's talking about. And actually went on Setlist FM, which is one of my favorite websites. I love Setlist FM, being able to look up set lists for any show, even shows that I went to years and years and years ago. Anyways, went on Setlist FM to take a look at Jack White's set list, and he does 16 songs. At least this is his most recent one when he performed a couple days ago at Irving Plaza in New York. He did 16 songs, which includes the encore. So the regular set had 12 tracks in it. Then he came back on. He did another 4 songs, which included a lot of the big White Stripes hits and songs that people wanted to hear. Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, at least from my perspective. I'm not a hardcore fan by any means. Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, Little Bird, Hotel Yorba, Ball and Biscuit, Seven Nation Army, he's got so many songs throughout his different projects, whether that be White Stripes or Raconteurs or his solo stuff, Dead Weather, anything like that. He has a lot of songs in his catalog. So I have a hard time thinking that any set list he could do would properly satisfy every Jack White fan, because obviously he has so many different projects that he's done over the years that makes it hard to put together. Like, you know, he's going to be on stage all night if people wanted him to play every single song that they know and love in the Jack White catalog. And taking a look at this, you know, I think this is a little bit short, maybe just a little bit short when you only have 12 songs in the main set and you come out there doing, 4 in the encore. There's not a lot of the big hits in there, which is maybe why some fans are leaving unsatisfied. I think a regular set more in the 20 song range with a couple of encores would make more sense. At least for me, I think that'd be reasonable for a show. You keep the audience engaged, but you don't lose them completely. And that's really what Jack White is trying to get at as well. And you know what? I'm a musician myself. I think I played over 500 shows in my career, and I've played all sorts of different lengths of shows. I played 30-minute sets. I played 45-minute sets, whether it be opening or at indie clubs or something like that. I played hour-long shows. I've played 3-hour-long shows. Like, one of the things my band used to do back in, like, when we were really, really gigging really hard, we were doing 3 sets a night for at least an hour. So we were playing from 10 p.m. or 9:30 p.m., 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. every single night. That was a very, very long show. And I always preferred to do something in the middle, especially as a singer who has to do a good job and still preserve their voice for the next night. That's another thing that people don't really consider as well, that Jack White wants to put a good amount of energy into his show. It doesn't seem like he ever phones in his shows. He's a very passionate musician. He's a very, very creative guy. And I don't really think that he wants to go out there and just run himself ragged for the purposes of making sure that people enjoy a longer show. And as a singer, as a vocalist, it's always that concern that you're going to be putting a certain amount of energy in your voice into each show. You want to be able to maximize that. You want to be able to feel good about that and still leave some gas in the tank as a vocalist for the next show. That was something I was always concerned about. I was like, yeah, I want to give it all tonight. I want to play all night long and make sure that everybody, I want to be on stage and be crowd surfing and just feeling everything and giving everything I got. But when you're on tour, you got to leave a little bit in the tank for the next night. And I understand that from an artist perspective as well. But then, even as a fan, I still like things to be a little bit tighter set wise. And I always go back to going to see Foo Fighters on their 2015 tour when Dave Grohl was injured. You guys probably remember that. He injured himself. He fell off stage in Europe somewhere. He broke his leg. And then for the rest of the tour, including their North American tour and their stop in Toronto, when I saw them, he was performing from a throne. He was sitting on a throne and playing guitar and singing from there, which was very, very cool. I always thought that was really cool. But the thing is, it was a great show, but it got very, very, very long-winded. Like, Dave Grohl talked a lot that night, even more than usual. He was just kind of, maybe it was on pain medication. He was just like riffing and riffing and riffing. He was talking a lot, and I love Dave Grohl, but he talked a lot that night. And every single song, whether it be My Hero or Everlong or, All My Life, any of those Foo Fighters songs, every single song got extended into a 5-minute jam in the middle. And I found that enjoyable for the first couple of songs, but when every single song had that musical jam in the middle, it started to get really, really long-winded. And this is coming from like a hardcore Foo Fighters fan. Like, they are one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. I love Foo Fighters. I would watch them play all night long. But even though I can only take so much before I was thinking getting out of there, before the rush, getting to the car, before the parking lot got too busy, that kind of thing. And that's really not what you want from a rock and roll show. You want fans to be satisfied, but you also want maybe people leaving more. And I know that's another point that Jack made. And then you got to think about it from the fans' perspective as well, because it's 2025, okay? And we've talked about this on the channel. Lots of people have talked about this. Concert ticket prices are only going higher and higher. Going to a concert is getting more and more expensive by the day. Concert prices are absolutely insane, as is the price of most things in 2025 because of the hellscape that we live in our modern day. But I understand from a fan's perspective that we want more bang for our buck, right? Obviously, if we're dropping over $100 a ticket, which is pretty much the way it goes, like if you're going to see a big band, especially Jack White or anybody like that, guaranteed you're going to be shelling out at least over $100 a ticket, at least, to go see this, along with VIP and all these other perks that people pay a lot of money for, this and that. And then if a band only plays for an hour or an hour and 15, it feels a little bit like a ripoff. I totally understand that from the fans' perspective, because we pay so much money to go see concerts these days. And I used to go to way more concerts when they were a lot cheaper, right? Nowadays, it's a lot more money to go to a concert. You know, I spent a lot of money on my Oasis tickets for later this year in Toronto, and it's hard to justify spending more money on concert tickets when I already spent a small fortune to go see Oasis. Like, I used to go to more concerts when they were way cheaper, and now I have to definitely pick and choose which concerts I go to. So when I do go to those concerts, I want to get my money's worth. I remember last year or 2 years ago, actually, my girlfriend Danielle and I, we went to go see Don Broco, one of our favorite bands. We went to go see Don Broco in Toronto, and we were very disappointed, actually, because the set was a little bit short and they didn't play one of the key songs that we wanted to hear. They played every other big hit that they had except for Technology, which is one of our favorite Don Broco songs. We were disappointed about that. And then the curfew for the venue was 11 p.m. and there was a thing called a sound curfew. And I know this probably isn't something new, at least, but it felt new to me. There's a sound curfew. So the curfew for the venue was 11, but the sound curfew was 10:45. So the show was a little bit shorter than we were expected. And this was on a Saturday night in Toronto. And not to say like that it was too short, but it could have been a little bit longer. 11 o'clock on a Saturday night is early, especially for me when I used to play in bands until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then like bands are getting off stage at 10:45 at night. Like, I wish that I could get off stage at 10:45 at night. And the thing that Jack White also has to expect too is that not every music fan is looking for a Marvel movie in concert form with all the bells and whistles and all that stuff happening, or Pink flying over the crowd at her shows, or the big pyro and the big screens and all that kind of thing. Like, I don't really think we expect that from a musician like Jack White. He's a rock and roller. He does really, really raw stuff, and that's what we love about Jack White and why he's such a unique musician. But I think the thing at the end of the day is that we do want a solid night's worth of music. We want to feel like we got our money's worth. And I get the feeling that what we really want is we want to be able to get a feeling out of the concert, right? We want it to be long enough for us to be able to get that cathartic release. Like, if we're looking for a long set list or a longer set list, I feel like we're just looking for that point in the show where we can make a solid connection with the artist. And sometimes we need a little bit of a longer show to make that connection, not necessarily Bruce Springsteen level where he's doing 3-hour shows, but something a little bit longer. Like I said, a 20-minute set list to me feels like the right amount of songs for a set list. Of course, we'd always like a little bit more, but then, like I said, with Foo Fighters, a band I love, Foo Fighters are one of my favorite bands of all time. Even I got a little bit bored when they went a little bit longer than they should have at a show. It's a very delicate balance of how long a show should be. The artist is trying to gauge how long they should do it. The audience wants to make a connection to the artist. And I think that is, again, like the main point that I'm trying to drive home is that we are all looking to make a connection with the artist. And so that might take a little bit longer. It might take a little bit shorter. But at the end of the day, as concert fans and as musicians or the people on stage, we want to make a connection. We want that connection to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I think that's why we walk away feeling more disappointed, as opposed to, you know, the necessary length of the show being long or short or whatever we think it's supposed to be. We just want to make a connection. I think that's what Jack White is going for as well. And because things do cost a little bit more these days, we want to make sure that we get that connection at the show. We want to walk away feeling satisfied. And I think that's what we're looking for. So for me, I think like a 20-song set list. I think Jack's set list of 16 songs. I feel like that's a little bit short, at least from my perspective as a musician and as a music fan. But I think, you know, if he added in a few more songs and also made a set list that, you know what, nowadays, guys, at these concerts, there are the diehard fans. There's those of us who will love every single song. You know, if I go see Oasis and they play, I Got the Fever from the Stand By Me single, they play something really, really random, you know, Let's All Make Believe, if we want to talk about Go Let It Out. If they played at the show, I'm sure me and a lot of other fans would be like, oh my God, they're playing this amazing deep B-side from their catalog from years and years ago. But for a lot of casual fans, that's not going to be interesting. And more these days, concerts are becoming And they always have been, but they're becoming more for the general audience. It's less about those specific fans who want to hear this, that, and the other. We really need to put together a set list. I hate to say, like, you got to play the hits, but you really need to put together a set list that is going to satisfy the crowd. And that is the end thing, especially with concert prices being so much money. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this topic. How long is the ideal concert length for you? How long do you feel a concert has to be for you to get your money's worth when you go to a show? Is it an hour and a half, 2 hours? Do you want them to go full Springsteen and do 3 hours? Let me know in the comments below. How long should an ideal rock concert be? I think there'll be a really, really interesting discussion.